Lost your voice before going on stage? Worried about your dance moves? Don't worry, just lip sync. Be warned though, there's a good chance it'll all go horribly wrong. If you were a teenager during the late 1980s or early 1990s, there is basically no chance you haven't heard of the New Kids on the Block. The band started when the guys were just teenagers, and their moves and voices made them extremely popular with girls of a similar age. In 1992, the New Kids on the Block were still at their peak, but everything would soon start to unravel, not least because lip-syncing allegations crept up on them. In February 1992, the band's former music director, Gregory McPherson, accused them of lip-syncing their performances in a now infamous multi-million-dollar lawsuit. Asked how much of their music features their real vocals, he said,
"Maybe 20% in some instances, maybe a little more in other instances, and maybe a little less."
McPherson said the group's lip-syncing dated back to the 1980s and even claimed that the audio on their live concert video was completely fabricated. The group denied all of these allegations, but it didn't prevent a public relations nightmare from unfolding. Yet, in the space of just 3 months, McPherson recanted his accusations and dropped the lawsuit. To this day, there is no evidence that the New Kids on the Block ever lip-synced at all, and the group eventually filed a countersuit against McPherson over his public allegations. The group recovered and put out another album before splitting up, but it had turned out to be an ugly scandal nonetheless. Considering she's one of the most successful artists of all time, it's usually pretty hard to find much fault in Beyoncé's live performances. A minor scandal erupted in early 2013, however, over allegations that she had lip-synced the national anthem during former President Barack Obama's second inauguration. For her performance, Beyoncé sang while the United States Marine Band played behind her, and most observers agreed that it sounded fantastic. However, almost as soon as she was finished, questions began to emerge about the performance's authenticity. Multiple news outlets openly questioned whether Beyoncé was actually singing live or miming to a track, and the Marines seemed to confirm as much the next day through a spokesperson. When Beyoncé finally commented on the allegations a few days later, she confirmed that she had indeed been lip-syncing during the performance. Her excuse was that she did not have time to adequately rehearse with the Marines before the ceremony, and she did not feel comfortable potentially flubbing such an important song at such an important event. Luckily, the initial backlash over the scandal died down pretty quickly. Most people understood Beyoncé's logic for lip-syncing, and her perfect rendition of the anthem at a subsequent press conference expelled any doubts about whether or not she was capable of pulling it off.
Any questions?
In the end, Beyoncé came out no worse for wear, and basically nobody holds it against her today. Britney Spears is one of the most successful pop singers in modern music history. Since the 1990s, she has been electrifying audiences around the world with her pop hits, and she was once considered one of the industry's most provocative sex symbols. Her records have sold tens of millions of copies, and she has some of the most famous pop hits in recent memory, including Toxic, Lucky, and Baby One More Time. For as much success as she has had on stage, however, Britney has also been dogged by rumors of lip-syncing throughout much of her career. In recent years, some of the allegations have gotten louder. Fan-shot videos from Instagram appear to show instances in which she misses her cue and the vocals start without her, and her 2018 performance on Dick Clark's New Year's Rockin' Eve was widely criticized for her alleged miming. Sometimes where there's smoke, there's fire, and it turns out that might just be the case with Britney Spears. During a 2013 interview with Billboard, her manager, Larry Rudolph, confirmed that she uses a backing track during her performances. He also insisted this was necessary due to her intensive dance routines. Britney seemed to admit as much in a 2017 interview in Israel, saying that while she sings live, she also has a backing track to help her out. Still, she continues to perform to huge crowds to this day, so it seems her fans aren't too concerned about any of this. By far, the most infamous lip-syncing scandal in music history revolved around the pop duo known as Milli Vanilli. Rob Pilatus and Fabrice Morvan burst onto the scene in the late 1980s, and their combination of good looks and catchy tunes earned them success in both Europe and the United States. They even won a Grammy in 1990 for Best New Artist on the strength of their debut album, Girl You Know It's True. But the jig was up just a year later, when Pilatus and Morvan were outed as phonies. Their producer, Frank Farian, let slip that it wasn't really them singing on their records or during their live performances. Apparently, Pilatus and Morvan wanted to sing for real on the next record, but Farian didn't like their actual voices and decided to blow up the whole grift instead. In their defense, Pilatus and Morvan claimed to have only participated in the lip-syncing scam to escape poverty in West Germany, and they ended up returning their Grammys.
One day to the next, we lost the fame. We were pushed aside suddenly, and you had to live with that.
The record company was soon forced to give rebates to fans who had spent money on Milli Vanilli records, even though executives had been unaware of the scheme. Today, Milli Vanilli are practically synonymous with the whole concept of lip-syncing. Long known as one of the most electrifying entertainers in music, Michael Jackson was, without a doubt, one of the biggest stars of the 20th century. Few people can claim to have even a fraction of the success he enjoyed, both as a member of the Jackson 5 and as a solo artist. Yet, as it turns out, even the king of pop was not immune to allegations of lip-syncing. It's long been something of an open secret, but most people think that he lip-synced his iconic performance at the 1983 Motown 25th Anniversary Special. Jackson performed both as a member of the Jackson 5 and solo. He sang Billie Jean immediately following his performance with his brothers, and it's here that the accusations of lip-syncing arose. Some claim that Jackson's performance was lip-synced because of his backing band, but it probably had more to do with his intensive dance routine during the set. That said, most people don't care about Jackson's supposed lip-syncing for one simple reason. This was also the performance where he debuted his famous moonwalk dance, and so that's all anyone really remembers about it. In fact, the entire performance is widely regarded as one of the greatest of his career, lip-synced or not. At this point, it's pretty safe to say that Motley Crue are well past their prime. They still tour and perform widely, but they're also a long way from their peak in the 1980s and early 1990s. Case in point, the various lip-syncing and miming accusations levied against Vince Neil and the rest of the band. In recent years, Neil has been widely ridiculed for his less than stellar vocal performances, with many music websites pointing out his inability to sing in key and his lack of stamina. Since then, videos have emerged of Neil singing on stage to what appear to be backing tracks. Fans have noted times at which it seems as though you can hear Neil's voice, even when the microphone isn't next to his face. In addition, former Crue bandmate Mick Mars recently sued Neil and the rest of Crue, and as part of his lawsuit, he alleged that Neil was lip-syncing during their 2022 stadium tour. In fact, Mars's allegations about faking performances on stage weren't limited to Neil. He also accused both Nikki Sixx and Tommy Lee of using pre-recorded backing tracks. Neil and the rest of the crew have completely denied any allegations of using backing tracks, and they in turn have accused Mars of doing the same thing. It's an ugly situation for everyone involved, and no doubt fans are still hoping that the crew is true.
Once again, Ashlee Simpson.
Besides Milli Vanilli, Ashlee Simpson probably takes the award for the most infamous lip-syncing scandal. In fact, Simpson's might even be a little bit worse, because hers happened on live TV on one of the most watched shows in history. Simpson appeared on Saturday Night Live in late 2004 to support her debut album Autobiography, which had been released earlier that year. On the night of the performance, Simpson claimed to have come down with a medical issue which compromised her ability to sing. However, instead of canceling her appearance, her father and manager, Joe Simpson, decided she would sing over a backing track. During her performance, the band started to play the wrong song, and when the vocal track turned on, an unprepared Simpson failed to start singing. After a few seconds of awkward dancing, she left the stage. The show cut to commercial as her band played out the rest of the song. Simpson's performance was widely ridiculed in the press and by viewers. Her career never really recovered after SNL, and she has not released any solo music since 2008. For decades, Dick Clark's New Year's Rockin' Eve has been one of the most popular TV shows for America's New Year's Eve celebrations. Every year, the show sees an array of musical guests performing all kinds of songs, and usually they get rave reviews. And you would think that Mariah Carey would easily cement herself as one of the show's standout performers, but her appearance during the 2016-2017 show was marred by embarrassing technical malfunctions. From the very beginning of her performance, it was pretty clear that something was amiss. Carey appeared to be unable to hear the music she was supposed to be singing to, and she soon grew visibly frustrated. At one point, she completely stopped trying to sing along to her backing track and simply tried to pump up the audience instead. Fans immediately tweeted jokes comparing her to Milli Vanilli, and the entire set was pretty much chalked up as a total disaster.
Mariah Carey's team doing major damage control tonight following a show-stopping, jaw-dropping New Year's Eve debacle.
Luckily, Carey was a good sport about the incident and even tweeted her own response, complete with several emojis and an expletive. Reportedly, the issues did not occur during her soundcheck and only began moments before she walked on stage. Carey still handled the incident like a champ, even though it was a less than ideal experience. When Jennifer Hudson and Faith Hill performed during the pre-game show at Super Bowl 43, most people who watched them thought they sounded pretty amazing. Hudson's performance of the Star-Spangled Banner showcased her incredible voice and drew huge amounts of applause at the same time. However, for anyone who was watching closely, it was also pretty obvious she was singing to a backing track. It's not that Hudson did a poor job miming, but when you have 10 different cameras filming you up close in high definition, it's pretty hard to keep it a secret. Within a few days, the producer responsible for the pre-game show, Ricky Minor, had admitted the performance had been lip-synced to the Associated Press. According to Minor, he specifically wanted both Hill and Hudson to use backing tracks instead of singing live. This was not due to a lack of confidence in either performer, but rather because it's actually the norm for Super Bowl performances. The practice has been around since the 1990s and is probably a reason so many of the halftime shows tend to be so impressive. Some fans were rightfully upset after finding out that neither the national anthem nor America the Beautiful was performed live, but at least the backing track sounded amazing. In addition, it's pretty hard to get upset at Hudson or Hill for doing something everyone else has done, especially when it doesn't seem like it was their choice. For many people, the best version of the Star-Spangled Banner to be performed before a Super Bowl was that sung by Whitney Houston at Super Bowl 25. Dressed in a bright white tracksuit with a matching headband and accompanied by a standing orchestra, Houston belted out one of the most heartfelt performances of the national anthem in history. Or at least it seemed that way. For years, most people thought that Houston had sung the song live. However, as Ricky Minor revealed to Today in 2021, Houston was actually using a backing track along with her live voice, though it appears the audience mainly heard the track and not her live voice. The use of a backing track has somewhat diminished the prestige of her performance, but many fans still see it as a legendary moment in Houston's career. Organizers used a special arrangement of the song that was specifically timed to get the most out of the singer's iconic voice. Lip-synced or not, Houston's performance holds a special place in many people's hearts, and it will not be soon forgotten.